Hello, welcome back to Trash It. On today's episode of Trash It, we have Ajike, we have Sosa. Sosa, you might have already seen her in the previous video, or this might be your first time seeing Sosa today. So again, Sosa is a Trash It virgin. It's nice to have new people come on the show. So welcome back to Sosa. Welcome, Sosa. Thanks for joining us
Thank you
today.
for having me back.
Okay, great. So we have Yori and then we have Talia. Again, Talia, you should already know her as well. Okay, so the topic we're going to be talking about today is I saw a post and I just thought, this we can discuss this on Trash It and see what people's views are. So the thing was, someone wrote and said, you adopted a baby boy and later God blesses you with a boy. Who will you consider to be your first son? Okay, so Ajike is already carrying face in one corner because we've talked about this topic before. So basically, you've been looking for a child, and I know sometimes people have infertility issues, and then they say, okay, but whilst I'm waiting and believing that God will bless me, I'm going to go and adopt, right? And you adopt a son, a male child, and maybe you adopted the child from when the child was a baby, and you're like, yeah, this is my child. God, if you bless me, fine. If you don't bless me, it's okay. This is my child. And then a few years down the line, God decides to smile upon you and blesses you with a male child. Now the question is, which of these children will be your first son? Which of them would you consider as your first son? Tyler, let me come to you first. Who is your first son?
The one I got first, which is the adopted child. And you can't actually disown an adopted child. You can disown your own biological child, but you can't disown your adopted child. So
Oh, really? Where does it say that?
it's a law. It's even in the Bible. Yeah, but it's a UK law. You cannot disown your adopted child. And I think I don't know about Nigeria actually. Let me not speak for Nigeria, but I know it's a law. You can't disown your adopted. So your adopted child, you're stuck with forever till death do you part.
So you can't return the child to the government
So
if you
who?
don't.
Who? No, you can't. And to be honest, I feel like as a human being, you've adopted that child, you've loved that child. So because you now have your own biological child, what now happens to that child? I mean, that child paved the way. That's my thing anyway. That child has opened your womb, because now you can love a child, and that child has now made you soft enough to be able to carry your own child. So why disown that child? That child is a blessing to you. And this is the thing that has happened. I know of a person actually that adopted a girl. It was a girl, and she couldn't have her own child for a long time. Adopted a baby girl, loved the baby girl. In fact, if you see her and the baby girl, you would never know that wasn't her biological child. And that paved the way. She had triplets. This is someone that could not have kids. Like, she's tried everything, and the baby girl turned 7, and then she had her set of triplets. So for me, that child is a blessing. I know human beings are wicked, but that child is a blessing. Why do away with that child?
So are you saying that you can love an adopted child and a biological child equally? Is that what you're saying?
If I have started loving that child before, nothing's going to change. Okay. There's nothing that will change. And I'm not even if you see me with my kids, you would know I'm not a mushy mom. I'm not that one that will be like, oh, my kid. No. I love them. I will do anything for them. But if I love you, I will do anything for you. Whether you're my child, you're not my child, that's my kind of person. I'm not a person that says, oh, because if my child misbehaves, I deal with it. I'm not that person that says, oh, that's my child, I'm gonna, no. So it won't be an issue for me, to be honest.
Okay, thank you very much, Talia. Very nice of you to love all the children equally. Yori, let me come to you with the same question. Who would be your first child and why?
Okay, before I answer that question, because when you sent this to me, I just thought, well, that's a little bit daft from that person. But I'm thinking now, retrospectively, the person that posted this, are they African?
Are they what?
Are they African?
Yeah.
I believe so,
So I
yes.
can imagine the unspoken thing you haven't mentioned here is the aspect of the gender of the child.
Yes.
So and that kind of icks me. So if this was a female child, they will be comfortable, but because it's a male child, that person has to then say, oh, this. No. That child, it took you a huge thought process. You can't just say, I want to adopt, and then you give your child, bam. It doesn't work like that. In the UK, you have to go through a law, psychological, to see if you're prepared. They come home and do a home assessment. They look at you as a person, as are you fit enough to even take care of a dog before they now entrust a child to you. So if you have gone through that process to adopt a child, and you have loved that child until your own child now comes through, because you already have a child. That child you've adopted is your child. That child bears your last name. If they had a parent evening, you probably would have to go. If they were to adopt, if they were to operate on this child they would call on you because you are the parent. So to return that child, or to think you should return that child, then that means you're not supposed to be a parent in the first place. Because in your time of need, that child was your succor. That child was a relief. That child was a blessing. So that blessing, you don't deserve it. Even the one that you now created yourself, you don't deserve it. But if you're going to think outside of the box, the main reason that person posted that thing is about gender. A male child is really important. Look, I've got 4 siblings. We only have one boy. We're 3 girls. And I say this, my dad and I were having a conversation yesterday. And he says, sometimes when I go out, I tell my friends, my girls did this for me. Girl children are very, very important. Absolutely. So if anyone thinks, oh, I've got a boy, boys are on top of the world. Nah. And she's saying this, and I might be, maybe it is me just being rallied up. Maybe that person didn't mean it that way. But if that person means it because I have a male child, I cannot produce my male child, this male child is not, you're stupid. You don't deserve that blessing of the adopted child. And you don't even deserve the blessing of the one that you carry. Because for you to think for a second that can unmummy someone that's called you a mom. In most cases, in this country, we don't have orphanages. We have a situation where social services takes a child and puts it in a foster situation. In Nigeria, you probably will have to go to an orphanage. So do you want to return that child to an orphanage? Do you want that child to, do you want to dent that child and not make that child be able to add on to the society? You don't deserve it. And I hate to, I'm sure a lot of people are going to give me the flag that, oh, I'm harsh, but that is not the reality. You're not fit to be a mother.
Okay, thank you very much, Yuri. Well, there you go. It's all popping off. Adika, let me come to you quickly before we go to Esosa. I know we've had this conversation before when I sent you this topic and you were like, oh, Celia. So what? Let's hear it now. All the bass you were giving me on WhatsApp, please.
I don't have any bass. I don't have bass left to me. Yuri has said it already, but I will come from the place of knowledge. Now, I'm a Christian. I don't hide that. And I will tell you 4 adoption stories from the Bible. The first one is Moses. Moses was adopted by Pharaoh. If you ever watch The Prince of Egypt, my son and I watched it recently. The treatment that Pharaoh gave Ramesses and Moses was the same. The only thing was that Ramesses was older than Moses. That was the only order. In fact, when Pharaoh's wife, I can't remember their mother's name, when she picked him from the waters, she told her maid he would never, she said something like he has attained the level of a god or whatever. I know in Pharaoh was, that's what was like God to them. That's one. Another one is Queen Esther in the Bible. Queen Esther was adopted by Mordecai. She was. Another story is Jesus. Jesus was adopted by Joseph. God appeared to him and told him, see, you're going to take this baby. There's nothing you're going to do about it. Then we have been adopted by Christ, by God. God says we are co-heirs along with Jesus. That is the order. Jesus, that is as in we are as good as Jesus in the eyes of God. We can do the things he did because God has called us his own. Now back to the idiot that posted that thing. Because you don't have any other name other than idiot. The person, I'm very, very sure, is an evil person. God forgive me. I'm not going to even go there.
I will mute myself.
I am very, very sure that person is not from Western Nigeria and is not from Northern Nigeria. They can drag me anywhere they want to drag me. I am very sure. I can beat my chest like this. Because they are the ones that will say somebody gave birth, will not give birth to son.
Mm-hmm.
What the fact, and you know this thing you said, because it has happened to people I know. The man had been waiting for a child for a very long time, and when they wanted to adopt, he told the wife that she can only adopt a girl, so that when they have their son, if a boy eventually comes along or whatever the case may be, they can have the heir, so to say, whatever heir. I don't know how much money they have that they're having heir, but where heir is coming up, they have an heir. We cannot. It's painful because, like I keep telling you, the infertility space in Nigeria, I'm very, very involved. I've seen people do this and take those children to the village. Mm-hmm. Take them to the village to go and meet their mother and turn those children to maids.
The ones they adopted.
Yes, the ones they adopted. If you cannot love that child, I know I cannot love anybody more than my son. You can see I'm carrying my child, only me and him. We are going up and down the streets of Lagos. I can't. You understand? It's in as I don't have that capacity. I am sorry. I don't have it. So I'm not here to say I will do it. I don't have it. Mm. The people that come after my son are my sister's children, my brother's children. There's hierarchy in my life. Mm. In as much as I love them, I will hierarchize them. I don't know the English word for it, but where that is it. My sister cannot come here, and Celia will come here, and I will leave my sister for Celia. It's the truth. Mm-hmm. It's painful, but it's just the reality of things. Mm-hmm. So, but the moment that I know that I cannot, you understand? But another thing that comes to play is, okay, maybe things like the mother is no more. They now gave me that child. I will love that child, but that child already knows that Ajike is not my mother. Mm-hmm. In that situation, yes, that child already knows. But I was by myself. I carry my two left leg. I need to if you know what it is to adopt a child in Nigeria, it's like this. It's the equivalent of blood, sweat, and tears to adopt, especially in Lagos. In fact, in Nigeria, forget Lagos. To adopt in Nigeria, you will pay the bribery and corruption that will follow again. You will know how far. You now go through all that wahala. You now say you don't love that child. It's very, very unfair. Mm-hmm. I don't think you should. If you don't have the capacity to love a child completely, please leave that child in that orphanage. Let another person that knows what to do with the child take that child and run with them. For me, that's where I've come from. Adoption is not easy. Mm. Because most people, for them to get to that point where they say, okay, I want to adopt a child, they've tried everything. It's not like for people that they don't have infertility problem and they don't want to have children. Most Nigerians that you see that adopt, they've gone through hell and high water to have a child, and it didn't happen. I've not seen anybody that just adopts people. In Nigeria, the form of adoption we have is family adoption. When people come, you know, maybe my uncle's child, my kindergarten, those ones, they know their place. They know their place in the family. They won't just go and put your man's room and go and be rummaging through his things. I can do that. My cousins can't do that. The same thing, I cannot go to their parents' houses to and go and be opening their doors. So we need to understand that. I don't know, in Nigeria, it's very difficult. Most people, this boy-child issue is so ingrained in them. Mm-hmm. It's a problem. It's an issue. And I don't think it can ever end. Trying to end it is full time. Just face your business. The child God give you, face them and forget all those his boy, his girl, his whatever. It's never going to go away. It's going to be there because we will forever have illiterates amongst us, whether educated or not.
I was going to say even educated illiterates.
Yes, whether because you are education and illiteracy.
Ajike, when you say you know their place, they know their place. What do you mean?
Like now, when I was growing up, I had cousins that lived with us.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't go back to their parents' houses. They lived, they grew up, they married from our house. But they cannot enter my mom's room now. The way I will enter and do anyhow.
So you see that as a form of adoption? Is that what you're saying?
They knew their place. They knew that, okay, this is my uncle. Fine, I'm calling him daddy. They call, you understand, in Nigeria, we call daddy that. They know, my father sat down when they were getting married. But they know that this is not, they and the magic are not on the same level.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay, so you're saying that they living with you is a form of adoption, right?
It is a form of adoption.
Okay.
They don't just ever go. They live in your house. You care for them. You do, just like I say. If they are ill, it's my mom that will go there, or my father that will go there. If there's operation, they will do. They do everything other than the fact that they are not, how will I put it, they are not just their biological children.
Okay. Okay, so if they know their place, so would you then say, okay, well, maybe they're not treated the way we're treated, like your parents did not treat you and them equally. Am I right in saying that?
Even me and my nephew and my children, we don't treat ourselves equally, except we are lying. I cannot have chicken here. I want to share it and give as much as fair as I would want to be.
Really?
If they put a bigger chicken, no, the truth of the matter. Let me put it this way. I would do that. I can be fair if I need to be fair. But the truth of the matter is, there's always going to be, because I'm not adopting, their mother and their father is there too now. I'm not adopting them. I'm not adopting anybody's child. So I would put my child, if there's a situation where I would say, okay, I would put my child above any other person's child. Yes. I would run it that way. I know most people are uncomfortable admitting that, but that is the truth. I would do that. I would do that. I'm not but if I have a child that I'm adopting, this child is my own, then I know that I cannot do what I am saying. It has to be equal. If my sister is sharing something, she has to share it equally. She has 2 children. I cannot have a will now, which I do, and give my son and my nephew the same thing. I don't know about you. Me, I cannot.
I think that's a different. You've touched on so many different topics. Like you brought in chicken. You've now brought in will.
Like now, okay, for me, maybe they are older. Maybe I'm looking at it in terms of hierarchy.
No.
Okay, maybe for food.
Like there's so many different.
Maybe what I was talking about the food. No, for the food. No. For food.
Feelings.
For food is free for all. But the truth of the matter is that for some people, it would get to that. If things are difficult, if things are hard, and you have to share something, it's not going to be equal. You're only going to make it equal when it's plentiful.
So, Ajike, don't you think that when you adopt a child, right, and then you also have your own biological child, given what you've just said, don't you think that it's always going to be at the back of your mind that, okay, well, I didn't give birth to this child, so I'm going to give my own child more than I would give.
Adopt. That's why you have seen me without one. I've said it. I'm not hiding it. I have said it. I cannot do it. And that is why I did not do it. But when you do it, you should know that you have to do it. I don't know what other English to if you put yourself in that place, that this child, I'm taking it from his parents, I'm going to take this child, I have to do right by this child, then I have to be fair.
Right. Okay.
But the child is not my own. I'm not ready to do it. So it's what is pleasing to me. If I go out and I want to buy chicken and I buy a bigger chicken for my son, sorry that you feel that way. I just wanted to buy him something bigger than your son's own. Sorry, you might not like it, but hey, it happened. I even bought. What if I didn't buy?
So what you're saying, Ajike, is if you're going to adopt, you should treat the child as you would treat your own biological child.
Exactly.
Just the way the Quran says, if you're going to marry more than one wife, make sure you love all of them equally. Esosa, let me come to you. You've heard what everybody has said. What do you think? Do you think it's possible to treat that adopted child the same way as you would your own?
Well, I've got a lot to say on this particular topic. Because when I saw it, first of all, the tweet or whatever I was saying, he said, if she didn't say that, if she cannot love them equally, she said, who is now her child, her first child? First of all, I read about Nigerian adoption. if a lady in Nigeria, you cannot adopt a male child. You have to adopt the same sex. If you're adopting as a single mom, as a single woman, first of all.
Okay.
I think I can understand why they would say that, because of nobody knows tomorrow, people can be abusive. Like, I cannot go and, just to make sure that they are within the same sexual orientation. Like, I don't know. Okay, that's number one thing.
I think that law needs to be reconsidered.
But according to with Nigeria, you would
think now.
It's a bit backward.
Nigeria, you would say, okay, things actually really, really develop slowly there. So you wouldn't blame them. And then secondly, like Ajike was saying, motive, everybody's got, I got to a stage in my life that I never say anybody is stupid for their decisions or for their actions. I stopped judging people, because sometimes you really, really, really have to understand people's got different motive in this life. The way you reason in your head is not the way somebody else reasons. So when somebody's got intention, people have different intention for adoption. Some people, they say, I don't care whether I'm going to be able to carry a baby in my womb or not. I just want to adopt. Even my daughter, she says that all the time. She's barely 16. They say, Mommy, I want to have an adopted child. So that's somebody that just love that. They just feel like it's one of their humanity, what they want to do in the earth. And somebody will say, situation made me, because I've been desperate to have a child. I cannot have a child, and I want that. Desperation is quite different. Desperation have a way of sensitizing people's mentality, because when you are desperate, you have no option. You are willing to give everything. And then thirdly, some people just feel like, okay, I want to have a child now. It's not like there's nothing wrong with my womb, but the child is not coming. You know what I mean? I cannot wait. I just want to adopt and see what happens. So those ones eventually have a child because they don't understand it. I don't think that they kind of process it a lot to say, you know what, no matter what, even if my womb bears a child later, this is my child. I'm going to love this child equally. There's no matter whether it's the first child or the second, a boy or a girl. I don't really care, Then, from experience, I was married at the age of 22, and my ex-husband had 2 children. It's quite personal, 3 years and 4 years when I met him. And I was like so responsible for them. Their dad even left me in Nigeria with the kids. I took care of them for 16 years. And most of my friends didn't even know. Even my own son, the first time I knew, I said, who's not my mom? He was asking me, because when I said, I'm not their mom, he was asking me, Mommy, then who's my mom? Because my son didn't realize that. But of course I did love them equally. I won't lie to you. But I stopped at some point when the love wasn't being returned. I didn't even realize how to be loved back until I had my own child. When my son came and gave me a hug and looked into my eyes, I felt a different kind of love. So there are different situations. They didn't make me stop loving them, no, but I now started realizing that this is my blood and this is my child. That is different, because that's not adoption, that is just being a step parent. But what I'm trying to say is that this person probably has gone to adopt because just to buy time. Maybe that's the reason why they did the adoption. They don't understand the context, because, I don't know if I'm going to have a child. Let me not lose my marriage. Let's just have a child there. And then when your child comes, because you've not really thought about it, you don't even understand it, that this person that you are bringing, despite you're not related, you're not biological, this is your child, whether it's a day older than your son, even if it's one day and you get pregnant the next day. It's the first child, is how it's done. People do that to even people that you've not even adopted. I'm not even talking, as I'm talking to you now, I will bring a child that doesn't belong to me. I treat them as equal as my child. I don't have 2 ways about, I'm not going to think about it. I'm not even, my children, they already know that. My children know. And if my children act in the wrong way, they will be treated even worse than, because I will be expecting them to be better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have that. It's just something that naturally is me. Will I judge somebody? And I'm like that, as you can say, I cannot do it. If you know your motive, you cannot do something. Why throw yourself in a situation and then start making life complicated for yourself because of your selfish motive, So maybe the person is going to adopt this child because she was buying time. And then when the real love comes, You know, she's not able to comprehend, she's not able to understand why she's feeling this way towards another person, you know, and then she doesn't have this feeling towards this person. It might not be stupid, ignorant, and all that. But the fact remains that people need to understand what they are doing. Make sure that your motive is always right before you do something. Because if not, you're going to put yourself in a mess and then struggle with it in the end.
Okay. So basically, what we're all saying that the adopted child should remain the first child because the child came into the house first.
Therefore,
Okay.
100%.
So do we all think we're just talking? We're trying to be politically correct because we're on this platform, or maybe we're just talking because we.
Correct, too. I've been very politically wrong, and I don't care.
But there are different kind of adoption, though. If you know that, because if there's fostering, there's adoption where the child knows that at some point you'll be waiting for the child to get a certain age. I have someone that got she told me that she's got adopted. She's done everything like legal, everything's fine, and she said at some certain age, I'm going to let the person know. You know, that one is quite different. That one is something that you want to do. You know, but when you adopt a child of 2 or 3 days old, the child doesn't really have an idea.
No.
That you're not that. So, and you bring that child to this world, you love the child, take care of the child has loved you back because the child doesn't have any other.
Exactly. That's even wickedness.
So why will you in your head try to manipulate ways when this has already been natural? The child is giving you equal love as much as you're giving them. So what's bringing this whole manifestation in your head at some point?
People are saying that person doesn't deserve to be a mother because really,
I can't comprehend that.
It's not about being politically correct. It's just being
human,
real, because it takes a lot. Now, let me tell you something about international adoption. To adopt in this country, you have to adopt from Nigeria to bring that child here. You have to write to the Secretary of State seeking permission. And the reason for that is because obviously Nigeria is the hub for trafficking and all that stuff. So, and the reason I'm telling you is because I'm considering adoption. So you need to write to the Secretary of State saying you want to go and bring one child that is minding his or her own business from somewhere. And then you go through that's wala of writing, of fighting. Go, you meet with the prospective child, you love the child, you go through all that. You now carry this child that was minding his or her own business. I had opportunity, maybe another family could have adopted this child. You now get here and then now say, okay, fine, I've loved this child, to put this child in school, this child is here, this child has been calling you mom, then boom, you're not thinking, because I've walked through the halls of infertility, and sometimes when you stop stressing about I want to have a child, your body naturally sometimes takes things, and sometimes people conceive at that point. And the reason you are not stressed is because you now have another focus. You have this child to love, you have this child to take this. This child has provided you, and even for something to grow in you, you now want to pay this child back with that karma will catch you on your womb.
Okay, so going back to what I was trying to say just now, we're all in the UK, Ajike, we're all evolving, right? And we're the new generation, let me put it that way, right? And we see things differently from how our parents would see it. When it comes to culture and tradition, right? And unfortunately, or should I say fortunately, I don't know, this person has zoomed in on the fact that this child is a male child and is now asking who will be your first male child. Now let's go to traditions. You have some cultures like the Igbo tradition, the Benin tradition, where having a male child is very important, right? And also having a biological male child is also very important. I don't know about other tribes in Nigeria. So are you guys saying that that a man from that part of the world, for example, having gone and adopted and God then blessed them with their own biological child, are you saying that they will now just say, okay, yes, no, the adopted child is my first child, this is my own biological male child, it doesn't really matter, he'll come second? Do you guys really think, let's forget about what we think and how we see it, let's really think about it, and let's remove emotion. So do you think that Igbo man, or maybe that Benin man or something that hasn't really traveled to understand all these sort of things that we do, when they want to write their will, they will now put that adopted child as the first son? Ajike, let me come to you first with that.
is it Nigerian men or whatever, or African men, whatever.
African men, yeah.
They won't do, especially if God has blessed them with another child, they will not do that. They will probably put that their own biological children or child above that person. And if people are creating a cycle of, bitterness and all that, except that person is really, except that, I don't know how gracious that child will be, that the person will know forgive, because it won't just be about the will. There will be other instances where they would have started showing it unconsciously. They would have started showing it unconsciously. Okay, there's somebody I know. Her parents died. She started living with her auntie, a young girl. She started living with her auntie. And the auntie's husband has made it very clear, very evident to this girl that she's not welcome. It's not even about putting them in the same school. That's not the issue. But things like he would go out, buy things. Who was it that Talia that was complaining that I didn't share chicken equally?
I didn't complain.
He won't even give her the chicken. Maybe I even gave it. It's not just the same size. He will not even give her. He paid his children's school fees and told her he didn't have, the auntie, the girl the person that took on the responsibility of the girl is like a housewife. So this woman, she's bitter. She's obviously complaining to her friends because it's her own friend that is my own friend. She's not somebody I know. So it's a story I'm also telling. She was not telling her friend that, see how this guy is treating this girl, that she doesn't like it. And I know, like most Nigerians, we always say, and your life, we don't know tomorrow. This girl can be more, and in fact, most of the time, I always say, people that spoil their children don't end up being successful. This girl will run and be successful. You understand? So at the end of, so the woman was saying that, the way she's, and it's not because they are cousins. They are cousins. So, it's causing, he will come back from work and expect the girl to remove his shoe, and his own children are sitting there going fat. There's so much, so the woman is, and the person, how would I put it? The girl's father was her own brother. There were just two of them. So the brother has died. The brother's wife has died. So that's why she went to collect this child. She is trying, so you can see that this woman is obviously trying to do what's right. The husband is not. Some people are also like that. It might be one spouse that say no. So if that's already seen that rancor in the family even before, so dying and writing will say is far something. The child would have even been seeing it. You will see situations where maybe they'll send their own children abroad. They'll say this one should go to Covenant University.
Covenant is a good school.
If I could say about culture,
I'm not saying Covenant is not a good school. I went to Covenant.
Speaking, yeah.
I went to, you understand, I did my master's in Covenant. Yeah, I went to, it's a good school, yes. But what I'm trying to say, the equality of things.
Yeah.
The equality, you understand? We should just try as much as possible to be fair. I understand that it might be hard. I've never adopted before, and I know I don't have the spirit of adoption. That's why I'm not there. I don't have it. You will not see me there. I don't have it. My nieces and nephews are not for me to love. And even that one, it's not this thing. My niece and my nephew, after loving them for money, I just see their mom, they say, hey, mommy, all the things I've not I forgotten it.
Right. Esosa, you wanted to say something after you all moved to Talia.
Okay, sorry, quickly. When you said something about culture, yeah, of course. There are some culture where maybe it's something that has to do with chieftaincy title, where they know that it's blood lineage, stuff like that, which is quite understandable. When you know that, there's a particular, you have to be your blood biological son because it's like a hair and is hereditary, that one is quite understandable. And I'm sure at some point, we all pray that we're not in a situation like that. But when a situation like that arises, I believe that it's all communication. Even when you say culture, I'm sure human beings, cultures are not masquerade. They are human beings. They can have talk. And this is something that it will be like a conversation, like a communication where that child will definitely be aware that this is the reason we are doing this. You are not doing this because they are less of your child or they are, just because that blood, they need that blood because according to people, there are some culture where if you're not actually the blood, they're not going to put the crown on you or something like that. Yeah, that is a case where you say, okay, fine, But when it comes to every other thing, I don't see any reason why society or culture will make you want to, treat your adopted child less than your own child, when you know that you go into this adoption because you didn't help that child actually helped you. You know what I mean? You're not helping the child, you're not helping an adopted child. That child brings happiness, brings joy, brings everything that your own child.
Yeah. So, are you saying that it shouldn't, but it does? Because what I'm saying is, are you trying to say an African man, knowing I mentioned some states in Nigeria, I don't know about other parts of Nigeria and other parts of Africa, knowing that this child is not their biological child. They've taken the child as a child, but this child is not just their biological child. And now they have a son, they have a first son, and they want to write their will. Are you now saying that they're going to definitely put that biological child down as their first son? That's all I'm asking.
Yes, 100%. The only exception
I think they will.
Yeah, the only exception I made was, like, I'm a Benin person, and there are some titles in Benin where it has to be hereditary. It has to be somebody that's from your loins. That's the only exception that you think. Okay,
so are you saying a Benin man? Forget about that tradition you just mentioned. That's an exception. Are you saying a Benin man in this situation would put that adopted child as his first son?
I'm not going to say it from the wider perspective, because I don't know how they will act, but I feel like the right thing to do.
The right thing to do, right?
The right thing I think I should do. There shouldn't be any excuse to treat that child less than your child, or try to replace them because they're not your biological. There shouldn't be any excuse or any reason to do that.
Okay, Talia, thank you. So, Talia, let me come to you with the same question. Do you think a man from your part of Nigeria, I know you're from Edo State, I don't know where exactly. Yeah? Sorry?
I'm from Delta.
Delta State. So do you think, and I think you people are very hot on first sons as well. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. So do you think that a man from there will put his adopted child as his first son and forget about his own biological child? I don't know. I'm just asking.
Probably not. And that's just because Nigeria as a whole are like that, and I think that Africans, I don't know if it's just Nigerians, but I think Black people anyway, like, we're very
Black people.
Yeah, they're very, I don't even know the word to say it, but I don't think a man from my culture would put his adopted child first. And I don't think that's right. I think if you've had a child from a young age, a baby, where that child has only looked up to you, that child only knows you as dad, I think for you now to turn around and say, oh, because you now have your own biological child, so therefore this culture says blood. Did you not think about the blood culture before you decided to go and adopt that child? You're putting this child through heartache, because at the end of the day, these cultures were made by people just like you and I. So if in your heart of hearts you feel that this adopted child is your first child, remember, this child paved a way for you to even be called a parent in the first place. So this child is the first reason why you are called a parent. So why in God's name are you now putting it down to blood? The blood has nothing to do with it.
Okay, all right.
For me, the only way where an adopted child should even know that, oh, I was adopted, is maybe if, it comes down to health, you need blood, you need my kid, and I can't donate to you because unfortunately we don't have the same DNA, we don't have the same genetics, then fine, I can then explain to you. Other than that, there is no way why an adopted child that I've been nursing from baby should ever know that I'm not their biological mother or parent.
All right, thank you. Yori, let me come to you with the same question before I move to the last aspect of this topic.
I'm a Yoruba person, and I would want to think that Yoruba people have evolved, and that is me hoping. I'm from Owo, which borders Benin, so we kind of share the same kind of culture. If there's anything, you as the parent should be the person to look out for your child, not the culture. So as you're writing your will, you're not writing it for the people of Owo. Neither are you writing it for the people of Ondo State. You're writing it for your home. And the moment you put that adopted child as second or not getting anything, that is where you now let that child know that that child is not your child. So you don't owe anybody. And this is me now being fair. But I know the world is not fair. So I would imagine that some people will not put their adopted children as the first. I wouldn't understand why not. Because if anybody is going to call you, they will probably, because Yorubas, they call you by the name of your child, Baba Lagbaja, Mama Lagbaja. They would have been calling you the child, the Mama Lagbaja, not the second child. So if you have accepted to be called the Mama Lagbaja and the Papa Lagbaja of the first child you've adopted, then that child should be sitting cool and pretty. Now, let me tell you a story. I grew up in Ilorin. There's this family, I don't want to mention their name. For years, we didn't know what we used to call her Auntie B. Very pretty lady. We didn't know what she did. The man just hated her. But this woman loved on her, and their house was not far from ours. And when they served them food, she had to eat outside. You would see the woman doing extra.
Were they husband and wife? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
So they would do, the woman was doing extra, but we didn't understand what happened. And they had this one boy like that was so spoiled. We went to the same school together. This auntie B went to our school, but you would see her on the streets sitting, waiting for a bus to take her to school, while there was a driver that took the boy to school. And sometimes when they were taking me to school, we would give her a ride. And every other person that saw her in the school uniform, if you're there, you give her a ride. But we never understood why. It was later in the folk shop, as Jennifer was saying, we now found out that she was adopted. And unfortunately for them, their boy, their golden boy, got so rotten, started taking drugs, was in America, once in. Their dad had a stroke. They deported the boy back to Nigeria. Auntie B was in America. Auntie B now moved this man and their mom to America to cater for them, all his health, blah, 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 blah. If it were me, I'm not a petty, a bitter person. I would think twice before helping that man. When I came back home, this man was now crying. Like, oh, the one that we spent all the money on. It is now that he now knew that Auntie B was is my child, was now referring to Auntie B. But you know, when you look at it, Auntie B suffered.
Yes, the psychological and
you know, for children, girls naturally are very, very nice. We forgive easily. If it were to be a male child, chances are, you know, men, their heart is strong. That boy will not have anything to do. So I always say it, before you go there and go and take another person's child, think of it very well, because you can be the Jesus in that child's life, or you can be the Satan in that child's life. You can either mold that child or break that child. I grew up in a very busy home. That's why my house is never quiet. I grew up with my mom's sibling living in our house, and we were treated equal. And now, when I met my husband, I was like, sorry, I come with crowd. I'm not used to not having people. So that's why it's so easy for me to take on another person's child, because that was how I grew up. And when kids come here and I don't have enough, do you know the person that doesn't get anything? Renee. She don't get, because she lives here. And chances are I could get you more when they've gone. But this is what we have. Let Elos have it. If it's not enough, Mama. And she's used to it. Oh, I'll give this up. Because she knows that once they're gone, if we need to buy more, she will eat. So you need to be that person. And now maybe because I'm like this, because I know what my eyes, my nose, and my brain saw before I was able to have the one that I have. It'll be a blessing for me to have another child. So I don't see how it will be for me not to be able to love that child, because I really want to have another child. And God has been fair to me. I just can't naturally have another child. So if God has been fair enough to provide me with another joy, why on earth will I now about to die and now say, okay, well, doesn't mean Renee was not the first, it was this adopted child that was the first, and I say, we'll bump you. And that is me. And I get that people are not like that. And don't castigate them for that. It's good that you know. That way you will not go and bring one child and now start using the bottle of the Orogun to be knocking that child out of frustration.
Okay. So let me twist it a bit, right? So we've all sort of agreed that, okay, yes, this adopted child should be the first son. Now let's assume this adopted child is the first son, right? He's seen as the first son, but he's very promiscuous. He's into drugs, alcohol. He's dropped out of school, and you can't really, you don't see him as someone you can confidently hand over your company or your wealth down to. Whereas your second son is a modest child. What would you do then?
Is that for me?
Anyone.
Okay, fine. Now you're given a reason. So it's not as if this child, in the first instance, you're doing this will because that is what it should be. Now you have a reason. Your lineage or your heritage or your legacy, if given to this child, you're not thinking because it's an adopted child. You are leaving the character of the child.
Even your own child, even if your own children behave like that.
Child,
No,
yeah, you
because
say the same
Celia,
thing.
one thing you need to understand is that this promiscuous child was raised by you. Can you raise this child now? So just because this child is promiscuous does not make him less of it.
But Yori, you see, that's
Hold
when
on,
me
hold on,
I
hold
come
on.
in. That's when I come in with adoption. At times you
Hold on.
raise the child, but that child
Yeah,
itself
but
has
hold
been made
on,
up.
hold on. See, sometimes just because a child is adopted doesn't mean they don't have a good gene. We've seen instances where your own
Or
child
a bad gene, or a bad gene that you don't
Then
know.
you have some children self that it was you, your husband, and the Holy Ghost and the heavenly that delivered that child or gave birth to that, and they come with their own different. Children are different. That's why they never say never compare a child to another. Never compare your first, your second. The children have different strengths and weaknesses. Now, if you've raised this child in the way and the manner of the Lord, as you have been raising your other children, and this child turns out to be not what you wish it to be, now you've got an excuse. This is my legacy. Given where things are, your younger person, or it might not even be your own, it might not be the second child, it might be the third child down the line is even more responsible than the first two. We've seen instances like that. Do you understand? And then you have a reason. You're not going to leave that child out of the will. You just know what you will give on. To look at the child, let's even go biblical. Look at the prodigal child. The child went out there and squandered his own wealth, and they came back, and the father welcomed the child. And the other son got angry. Oh, you killed the goat, you killed the ram, and said, for everything that I have, you own. His own part, he has gone to waste it. Then we know our children, we know what they can do. I know if anything happens now, both me and my husband were swimming and someone is about to drown, chances are Renee will rescue her father before she rescues me because they're very close. So you know what I'm saying? We all know our children. So you now have a reason to say, okay, fine. It's not because you are an adopted child. It's because you are inadequate in certain things. So rather than me giving you my wealth and let the rest of your sibling be poor because you're going to make a very stupid or uncalculated risk, I will give it to one that has a good common sense, but with the condition that younger one does not lord you over the older one.
Okay, so assuming it was the other way around, so now you're saying that you would disinherit the adopted child, well, not disinherit, maybe move them down the line. But if it was your child, would you disinherit your child or move them down the line?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, you know what? Because I'm playing devil's advocate, because I'm really, it's really interesting to see that things are changing, people are evolving, and we no longer think the way maybe our parents and our parents' parents did think, because that way you're able to give everybody a fair chance. I know of someone in Nigeria who had a child, and the child had learning disability, and she wasn't with the father of the child. In fact, she didn't even look after the child. She left the child with her mom and just entered. She just entered the world basically. They didn't know where she was, and her mom looked after the child. Years later, she comes back when the child is now in her 20s, and she takes the child. And somehow this child gets pregnant, okay, by a guy, and the guy is looking after the baby that she's now had, because she got pregnant, she had the child, and the baby does not seem to have any learning disability. But however, in between that period when she wasn't really thinking about her child who had learning disability, she went and adopted another child, because that her child that had learning disability, she was ashamed of the child, right? So when she's going out, she will never take the child out. You will never see her post the child on her Instagram status or anything. It was as if she didn't have a child, basically. Only people that really knew her knew she had a daughter. But now this child that she has adopted, oh my God, The child is always on her Instagram status. The child is this, the child is that. So she pushes the child, and she's proud of the child. Whereas her own biological child that has learning disability, she doesn't really care about the child that much. And now that her child that has learning disability has now bore her a grandchild. Okay, so my question is, if she knew that child with learning disability was going to have was going to give her a grandchild that was fine without any disabilities, do you think she would have adopted?
Well, the child that's
right?
The grandchild, that's not her child, that's her grandchild, right? If I get the story very well.
Yeah.
Well, you and I know how people deal with people, with children who've got some form of learning disability, either on the autistic spectrum. This is a natural reaction from people back home, especially people that have got children that have got needs like this. I don't think she ever had any hope that child with learning disability will amount to anything.
Yeah.
She never hoped that. She never thought about that, because from what you said, she dumped this child with her own mom and just faced her business. She only came back and then decided to, okay, let me pity this child and take her with me once a month. She has no hope for that child. But if I were her, this is a point when you kind of safeguard this child, because this child did not ask to have this learning disability. We've had instances, when I say this, so when I pray in the morning, I always say this prayer that may my children, and I say my children because I now have more, and the ones that I have as my adopted children, and my nephews, like, may they not have any freak accident that will maim their life. You can set out to have a natural, normal children.
Yeah.
And what accidents in school or somewhere will just change their life. Now, if you're that person that in your heart of heart cannot love a child unless this child is perfect, would you then stop loving this child because this child has now had one deformity? Do you get what I'm saying? So she never had any hopes for this children, this lady, that's her child that's gone off to have a perfect, and she doesn't even know what happens down the line. She does not know. This is just a baby. We don't know what's going to happen come when this child turns 10 and the child now picks the mom's genes.
Yeah.
She doesn't know. So will she then drop her granddaughter when that child now start showing signs of LD?
Right. So, sir, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I still wanted to go back to motive, and people have different reasons for doing stuff. People have different, and I'm telling you, we're all talking here, we're all different. And being faced with the same situation, we all might all react differently, because we reason from our different faculty, our mentality is quite different, we all have different orientation. But the fact still remains that no matter what, the right thing is right is always right and wrong is always wrong, no matter how, So when people adopt, I'm telling you, a lot of time, actually this adoption, people is becoming very, very, especially in Nigeria, there's a lot of awareness with adoption. People just feel it's cool, I want to go adopt, People are just, I'm telling you, some people just feel it's cool. I'd like to have an adopted child. How is that going to feel like? Let me try it out. That's it.
Right.
You not expect that person to have an outcome of somebody that has actually really, really think that they've brought in this world to show love to another person's child. They have different outcome. Motive is the one, doing in this life. Whatever the outcome is what's inside in their head before they're making that action is what comes at the outcome. Even marriages, everybody say, I want to marry, I have children, even moms. People have, I work in a school, I work with special needs. So I understand how it is for you to have a special needs child. Is a very, very difficult situation. I don't judge people that get a bit overwhelmed with the situation. But the whole thing is that if in your head you know what you're doing and you have this motive, you have this clarification in your head that this is what you're meant to do, you do it. So this lady that has gone to give this child her motive was, I cannot be sampling a disabled child as my child. Let me go and use that one. It's a fashion. Let me go and take another one. Since you have that option where, okay, and God has a way. In our head, we are planning. God is planning his own ways. So I'm surprised that another situation where, this special needs thing is a different topic entirely. So that's where, like gene, when you have a child, you have different gene. Like if you have a child that's got sickle cell anemia, I don't know how the process is when you're adopting a child in Nigeria. I've not really researched on that. I don't know if they do those thorough checking about blood and all that to know what this child.
I think with the process, not that I know a lot, but with what I know a bit, given what I'm researching at the moment, and maybe because I wouldn't want to say I'm going. I don't want to say as if I'm bypassing the rule, but when you know people, they do some special.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can check.
Yeah.
And this is answering your question so around genotype. So you can check if this child has got sickle cell, some people
thalassemia.
so you can even, depending on who you know and who you, and in Nigeria, I'm sorry, it's who you know, especially when it comes to moving the goalpost with adoption as well. So you can check if they've got, if the child.
Or shouldn't they be telling you all those things anyway before you adopt the child? They should be letting you
I
know.
think it should be like a process. Because
the thing about it is that there's a file on, it depends on the orphanage or where you're, based on the little that I know, it depends on the orphanage or the system they're using or wherever your handler is. There's usually be a file of where they pick the child up, or who probably where they pick the child up, when they dropped off the child, any illnesses, blah, blah, blah. But if there's anything, unfortunately, that Nigeria is not good for, is record keeping.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to adopt a child from Nigeria, that's why you need to pay extra and do your own results, what you want to know. It's best you then ask that I want to do that. And then there's people that will say, oh, any child that has a physical presentation of Down syndrome, I don't want. Anyone that has a physical presentation of sickle cell, I don't want. And you know what? Some people are so, it's like a shopping cart.
See, that's the thing. That's the thing.
For the rich. I think though, you should, because even when you're having your own natural child, you go through all these tests, you know, to find out if the child will have trace of Down syndrome and stuff like that, and then you decide at the end of the day if you want to keep,
if you can manage that.
Yeah, but the thing about Italia, in your own case, you won't be looking for a child that is as fair as you. If you were gonna have a child, you would just have
you seen my third son?
No, but did you seek out a fair child? You didn't seek out a fair child.
No, I didn't.
Yes, so it's one of the shopping cart list where people say, I want a child that's so light. I want a child.
Really?
Yeah, so
it's just vanity, isn't it?
That's what I'm saying. Look, the goalpost would usually shift in places like that if you've got the funds and the finances and the whereabouts to do it. But if you are just a genuine person that wants a child, please, all you have to do is make sure that you're heart of heart. And if you to be,
I can understand medically.
Yeah, medically is understandable.
I can understand medically because obviously
you don't light skin. Babies are all light skin. So
some of them are dark. Yes, some of them are dark.
Came out dark.
The funny thing that someone said to me was, how do you want it? And I goes, is it a pizza that you're asking?
You see, that's a very wrong question. How do you want it? It defeats the purpose of it.
And I was like, is it pizza? Is it steak that you're asking? How do I want it?
The person said this in Yoruba.
What do you mean?
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Nigeria is very scary because there's always loophole. You know, there's always going to be a loophole everywhere, and because everybody is doing it now, anything that comes, people just don't. They just want to get along and get on the train, and they don't really want to do it just because you know what I mean. And that's the fear.
Yeah, the new
a lot of
trend,
people,
which is, I'm sure at some point we will talk about, is the new trend now is surrogacy, and it's a minefield what you can get in Nigeria. The same thing with the adoption process. And people will tell you adoption is hard. Adoption is hard for those adoption is hard for. The moment that you have the whereabouts, you know the people.
When you have the means.
The means. The goalpost shifts.
Yeah.
And I think you have people like that will go and say, I want to take a male child and then I have my own child, and then you want to go and return the child or go and put the child up for a house help somewhere in your village.
And the thing is, I think with regards to adopting in Nigeria, I know one of my sister's friend just did recently, and I know you have to go towards the end of the process. You have to go and stay there for about 3 months or something like that to bond with the child. before you bring the child to, if you're not in the country, before you take the child away out of the country. But I definitely think when it comes to health matters, I think if you're adopting a child, I think they need to disclose to you if there are any medical conditions that you need to be aware of, because that way you can make an informed decision if that is what, if you can manage it, if you can handle it. If you're going to adopt someone with a sickle cell child that's going to have crisis, then you need to know that, okay, I'm ready for this, and I need to know medically what medication this child needs. If you have a child with Down syndrome, if you want to go for a child with Down syndrome, you also need to know that, okay, medically, this child needs to go for assessment. There are things that needs to be put in place, because with Down syndrome comes learning disability, and you need to know so that the child is well cared for, so that the needs of the child is met. So I think health-wise, the adoptive parent needs to know. But apart from that, I don't really think they need to know anything else. Yellow, fat, black, long, tall. I think those are just being superficial, and it's not, because you're adopting a child, because part of the reason why you're adopting a child, apart from the fact that you want a child, is also because you want to give that love to the child. So regardless of how the child comes, tall, black, yellow, or dark, you should be able to give the love to the child. But anyway, I think we've done this. I'm going to give it an end here. And I think I'm happy that everybody on the panel is saying the same thing. Treat an adopted child the way you would treat your biological child. And if you're unable to, then don't bother adopting a child. You have no business adopting a child, because you're going to end up seeing another side of you that you never thought you had. You're now going to see that, oh my God, I can be this wicked. Oh, I can be this jealous when your husband starts giving attention to that child, and you're going to start feeling a certain type of way, because this is not even your biological child anyway.
So with my dad, I used to ask myself if I'm this wicked.
Well, there you go. So if you know, because even if you're the person, if you're the kind of person that beats your child, for example, which you shouldn't do, and you also now beat the biological child the way you will beat your own, people are going to also say it's because they are not your child, that's why you're, so if you cannot love an adopted child, don't. Maybe start with your sister's children or your brother's children, and just have them around for the weekend and see whether you can
tolerate. But that was not like me. My sister's children that was, if they are one I see much, I used to return them to their parents.
You see, so that's it. If you cannot even cope with that wahala for the weekend, for example,
that's the joy of having nieces and nephews. I always tell people, because you love them like your own boss. When the push comes to shove, I beg, come and take your time.
Yeah,
thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Okay, but when you adopt a child, you can't return the child. You have to deal with it, basically. Anyway, on that note, we're going to end it now. Thank you again for coming on, for sticking with us this long. We're going to end this topic. I think we've done justice to this topic. Thank you to all the panelists for giving your views. And until we'll see you again next week. Have a good weekend, guys. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.